welcome to our final readings for Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry. So these are the last chapters that we have left, chapters 10, 11, and 12. That'll conclude the end of the book, so we will be finishing it this week. And we are going to be reading up to page 16 in these videos, and we will be answering text appendix question number 1. So just make sure you spend some time looking at the vocabulary words. We have the first one that is persist, and the second one that is solemn. Persist means to continue, often despite difficulty. So just make sure you add 2 synonyms and add an image. And we have solemn, which means very serious and often dignified. So once again, make sure you have your synonyms and image there. Here are the 4 questions we're looking at. What conflicts do the Logan family face? Why does Cassie almost feel sorry for TJ at the revival? Why do nightmen arrive at the Avery house? And what causes a fire? What is its effects? So it kind of gives you some hints about what might happen, like a fire is going to happen, nightmen are going to arrive at the Avery house. So just some clues to look forward to there. Okay, so for the first question, I'm just going to look for those ideas and just highlight them in light green. And then, as I mentioned, I'm going to be reading until page 16. So I'm going to find that here. This is page 16. Okay, I'm going to highlight this bright green. Just to jog our memories a little bit, remember that in chapter 9, you should be remembering where did we last leave off. And we know that we have Stacy, Papa, and Mr. Morrison that come back from their trip to Vicksburg. And we know that they were attacked at night. And that left their Papa in a really bad place. So we're kind of coming back from that they know that they were specifically attacked coming back from Vicksburg. So let's get started, and we will pause as we need to along. How does it look? Asked Papa as I passed through the sitting room on my way out the side door. Over a week had passed since he had been injured, and this was his first morning up. He was seated by the cold fireplace, his head still bandaged, his broken leg resting on a wooden chair. His eyes were on Mama at her desk. Mama put her pencil and frowned at the open ledger before her. She glanced at me absently and waited until I had closed the screen door behind me. Then she said, "David, do you think we should go into this now? You're still not well." "I'm well enough to know there's not much left. Tell me." I hopped down the steps and sat on the bottom one. Mama was silent a moment before she answered him. "With Hammer's half of the mortgage money, we've got enough to meet the June payment." "Nothing more?" "A couple of dollars, but that's all." They were both silent. "You think we should write Hammer and borrow some money?" Mama asked. Okay, so we already kind of see one conflict that the Logan family is facing, and we see that they're looking like they might not have enough money for mortgage money. So mortgage, of course, is like the house payment. So we know that they're kind of asking, like, should we ask? Right now we have the last question, like, should they ask Hammer? Papa did not answer right away. "No," he said finally. "I still don't want him to know about this thing. If he knows I'm not on the railroad, he'll want to know why not. And I don't want to risk that temper of his when he finds out what the Wallace has done." Mama sighed. "I guess you're right." "I know I am," said Papa. "Things like they are, he come down here wild and angry, he'll get himself hung. Long as things don't get no worse, we can make it without him. We'll meet that June note with the money we got there." He paused a moment. "We'll probably have to sell a couple of the cows and their calves to make them July and August notes, maybe even that old sow. But by the end of August, we should have enough cotton to make that September payment. Of course, we'll probably have to go all the way to Vicksburg to get it ginned. Can't hardly use Harlan Granger's gin this year." There was silence again. Then Mama said, "David, Mama's been talking about going into Strawberry to the market next." "No," Papa said, not letting her finish. "Too much bad feeling there." "I told her that." "I'll talk to her. Anything we just gotta have before the first cotton come in?" Okay, so just to pause, we have a few more conflicts, right? So we know that a conflict that they have is that they can't really tell Uncle Hammer, because if they tell Uncle Hammer, we know that he's pretty impulsive, so that might get him into big trouble. We also have the problem that they're going to have to go back to Vicksburg at one point to prepare their cotton, because it sounds like they used to use Harlan Granger's cotton, and obviously that's not going to happen for them, since Harlan Granger's, like, they're a huge target for Harlan Granger at the moment. And then we also have the issue that they can't really travel too much, so we know that Mr. Logan's basically saying that his mom should not be going to Strawberry at the moment, especially since he just got attacked. Okay, let's keep going. Well, you picked up batteries and kerosene on that last trip, but what we're going to need more than anything is some insecticide to spray the cotton. The bugs are getting pretty bad. What about food? Our flour and sugar and baking powder and such are low, but we'll make out. We don't have to have biscuits and cornbread every day. We're out of pepper and there's not much salt, but we don't just have to have those either. And the coffee's all gone. The garden's coming along nicely, though. There's no worry there. No worry, Papa muttered as both of them grew quiet. Then suddenly there was a sharp explosion, as if something had been struck with an angry force. If only this leg wasn't busted. Don't let Stacy hear you saying that, David, Mama cautioned softly. You know he blames himself about your leg. I told the boy it wasn't his fault. He just wasn't strong enough to hold Jack. I know that, but he still blames himself. Okay, so there's a lot of conflicts going on right now, and I think that it's important to pause to get them all. So here we see the fact that they have pests that they need to really fight. And that's why they need the insecticide for the cotton. Then we see, as far as food, they're running low on a few things, so we know that's a conflict. So I'm going to highlight that. Okay, then we have another conflict here where we have Papa's not able to go to the railroad. His legs hurt so he can't work, so that's a huge issue for them. And we have another conflict because Stacy blames himself for that happening, so that's another problem happening within the family. Alright, let's keep going. Papa laughed strangely. Ain't this something? The Wallaces aim a gun at my head and I get my leg broke, and my boy's blaming himself for it? Why? I feel like taking a bullwhip to all three of them Wallaces and not stopping till my arm gets so tired I can't raise it one more time. You're sounding like Hammer. Am I? Well, a lot of times I feel like doing things Hammer's way. I think I get a powerful lot of satisfaction from whipping Caleb Wallace and them brothers of his. Hammer's way would get you killed, and you know it, so stop talking like that. Don't we already have enough to worry about? Besides, both Thurston and Dewberry Wallace are still laid up, so I hear. Some folks even say that Dewberry's back is broken. In any case, Mr. Morrison must have hurt him pretty bad. Where is he, by the way? I haven't seen him this morning. Okay, so we have another conflict where we have Papa, who's usually like really level-headed, and he's really upset, rightfully so, but not sounding like himself, which could be dangerous. Then we also have, I would also probably highlight this where it's like he's very tempted to get like physical retaliation. And then another conflict that we have is like Mama saying we have enough to worry about because the people that Mr. Morrison hurt could be hurt pretty bad. So we know that could be a bad thing for them too. Okay. So a lot of conflicts building up right now. There was an instant of silence before Mama answered. Out looking for work again since dawn. He ain't gonna find nothing around here. I told him that. I know, agreed Mama, but he says he's got to try, David. Mama stopped, and when she spoke again, her voice had grown faint, as if she hesitated to say what was on her mind. David, don't you think he ought to go? I don't want him to, but after what he did to the Wallaces, I'm afraid for him. Okay, so here we have the other conflict. They're afraid for Mr. Morrison. Okay, I'm not going to stop as much for the next couple of minutes, and then we'll go back and look. He knows what could happen, Mary, but he wants to stay, and frankly, we need him here. Don't pester him about it. But David, if... Before Mama finished, I spied Mr. Morrison coming west from Smellings Creek. I left the step and hurried to meet him. Hello, Mr. Morrison, I shouted as Jack pulled the wagon up the drive. Hello, Cassie, Mr. Morrison greeted me. Your papa awake? Yes, sir, he's sitting out of bed this morning. Didn't I tell you? Nothing could keep him down. Yes, sir, you did. He stepped in the wagon and walked towards the house. Mr. Morrison, you want me to unhitch Jack for you? No, Cassie, leave him be. I gotta talk to your papa, then I'll be back. Hey, old Jack, I said, patting the mule as I watched Mr. Morrison enter the side door. I thought of returning to my seat on the steps, but decided against it. Instead, I remained with Jack, thoughtfully digesting all I had heard. Until Mr. Morrison came from the house, he went into the barn, then reappeared from the planter, a plow-like tool with a small, round container for dropping seeds attached to its middle. He put the planter in the back of the wagon. Where are you going now, Mr. Morrison? Down to Mr. Wiggins' place. I seen Mr. Wiggins this morning, and he asked to use your papa's planter. He ain't got no wagon, so I told him I'd ask your papa, and if it was all right, I'd bring it to him. Ain't it kind of late for seeding? Well, not for what he got in mind. He thought he'd plant himself some summer corn. It'll be ready come September. Mr. Morrison, can I come with you? I asked as he climbed up the wagon. Well, I'd be right pleased for your company, Cassie, but you'll have to ask your mama. I ran back to the house. The boys were now in Mama and Papa's room, and when I asked if I could go up to little Willie and Mr. Morrison, Little Man and Christopher John, of course, wanted to go too. Mr. Morrison said it'd be all right, Mama. Well, don't you get in his way, Stacy. You going? Stacy sat across from Papa, looking despondently at the broken leg. Go on, son, said Papa gently. There's nothing to do here. Give you a chance to talk to little Willie. You sure there ain't something I could do for you, Papa? Just go and have yourself a good ride over to little Willie's. Since it had been my idea to ask to go, I claimed the seat beside Mr. Morrison, and the boys climbed in the back. Little Willie's family lived on their own 40 acres, about 2 miles east of the Great Faith. It was a fine morning for a ride, and the 6 miles there sped by quickly with Mr. Morrison singing in the basest of bass voices, and Christopher John, Little Man, and me joining in whenever we could as we passed cotton fields abloom in flowers of white and red and pink. Stacy, being in one of his moods, did not sing, and we let him be. We stayed less than an hour at the Wiggins farm, then headed home. We had just passed Great Faith, and we were approaching the Jefferson Davis School Road when a ragged pickup came into view. Very quietly, Mr. Morrison said, Cassie, get in the back. But why, Mr. Moore? Do quick, Cassie, like I say. His voice was barely above a friendly whisper, but there was an urgency in it, and I obeyed, scrambling over the seat to join the boys. Y'all stay down now. The truck braked noisily. With a grating shriek of steel, we stopped. The boys and I peeped over the edge of the wagon. The truck had veered across the road, blocking us. The truck door swung open, and Caleb Wallace stepped out, pointing a long, condemning finger at Mr. Morrison. He swayed, unspeaking for a long, terrible moment, then sputtered, You big black nigger, I ought to cut your heart out for what you done. My brother's laid up like they is, and you still running round free as a white man. Downright sinful, that's what it is. Why, I ought to gun you down right where you sit. You gonna move your truck? Caleb Wallace gazed up at Mr. Morrison, then at the truck, as if trying to comprehend the connection between the two. That truck in your way, boy? You gonna move it? I'll move it all right when I get good and ready. He stopped abruptly, his eyes bulging in a terrified stare as Mr. Morrison climbed down from the wagon. Mr. Morrison's long shadow fell over him, and for a breathless second, Mr. Morrison towered dangerously near him. But as the fear grew white on Caleb Wallace's face, Mr. Morrison turned without a word and peered into the truck. What's he looking for? I whispered. Probably a gun, said Stacy. Mr. Morrison circled the truck, studying it closely. Then he returned to its front, and bending at the knees with his back against the grill, he positioned his large hands beneath the bumper. Slowly, his muscles flexing tightly against his thin shirt and the sweat popping off his skin like oil on water, he lifted the truck in one fluid, powerful motion until the front was several inches off the ground and slowly walked it to the left of the road, where he set it down as gently as a sleeping child. Then he moved to the rear of the truck and repeated the feat. Caleb Wallace was mute. Christopher John, Little Man, and I stared open-mouthed, and even Stacy, who had witnessed Mr. Morrison's phenomenal strength before, gazed in wonder. It took Caleb Wallace several minutes to regain his voice. We were far down the road, almost out of hearing, when his frenzied cry of hate reached us. One of these nights, you watch, nigger. I'm gonna come get you for what you done. You just watch. One night real soon. Okay, so, as you guys know, we've talked about the N-word, and I read it through since these are the powers of the author's words, and I think it's important to read it how she's written it. but we'll continue this in part 2 as you digest what happened in the scene.